Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Buster Show podcast. On today's episode, we have a very special guest, and that is because we have Ronnie 2K in on the show. Ronnie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing amazing. So we got a lot to talk about, but
Yeah,
congratulations on the covers being out for the new 2K release. Very exciting.
thank you.
But before we talk about that and get into everything 2K and your journey there, I wanted to ask you about a story from the
Okay.
beginning of your career that I read about, and I wanted to
Okay.
check if this was true. Is is this correct that at the beginning of your career you were working with a minor league team and you were involved in a Jose Canseco signing and then trade and then viral stunt that followed? What was the story behind that, and how were you involved in that at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, that was sort of the first kind of grassroots thing. Before those days, there wasn't really social media. So it was kind of interesting to get my first taste of social media before we really got into social media. What happened was, as a kid, I happened to like have this relationship connection with Jose Canseco, who used to play for the Oakland A's, of course. Um, and then when I was working for this minor league baseball team, it was my second job in sports. And my jobs in sports at first were, as anybody, grinding and paying your dues and everything else that goes into working in this industry. But I had that relationship, so I introduced him to our league, and he thought it was pretty cool. And this was like the summer of the Juiced book that he wrote, right? So he was very, very relevant at that moment. But we brought him on, and then he found out that we had a Long Beach team, and his daughter, who is now dating somebody famous, right?
Was yeah.
I mean, that's how long this has been. He moved back to live in Long Beach with her, and we had a Long Beach team, so we had to trade him, right? We had to make a move and move him to the other team. I was pretty upset about it because I had done all this work, and I was like, it's kind of weird. So let me kind of get my own jab in, and so it was never meant to be very viral. I definitely thought like people would find it funny and maybe get some local press, but it went really crazy. It was on Sports Center. It was on a variety of media. But basically, what we did was, as a game day promotion, we gave away juice boxes with his stickers of his face. Um, and I mean, it's simple in its nature, but it was also like really thought out, and working with this like really fun team. Minor league sports was all about that, right? Like you had to make something out of nothing. The budgets aren't very large. A lot of it's driven by the entertainment aspect, like more than what's on the field. I remember we had like game day promotions where we would like brush the bases with oversized toothbrushes because we had a dental partner, right? So like that's the kind of thing that really got you thinking. But I think the best thing about that experience was I was very close with our season ticket holders because we needed to engage our super fans. And I think that lent itself really well early in my 2K career, because that's how I sort of began that journey. Really talking and relying, learning from our super fan. I think anybody that works very close with their customer, any brand, is really got an edge because they really understand what's important to the consumer, and what toggles you got to press to make an impact.
Totally. And that's a pretty cool, first viral story to have.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been with 2K?
Uh, I'm gonna date myself right now, but since NBA 2K8. So here we
Wow.
are, about to launch NBA 2K22. So yeah, almost 14 years.
So what did you think of the 2K brand before you were involved?
Yeah, so like I was like most kids. I went home after working at my two jobs in sports, even when I was working in the legal field, and I would go and play video games. And the two games, there was three games I played a lot: PGA, Tiger Woods, EA, and then NFL 2K5, NBA 2K5. Those were the three games I played. I also played a little bit of Fable, but mostly it was all about NBA 2K5. I got really hooked on it for NBA 2K5 and I was top 10 of the leaderboards, and that's really when I
Oh,
started like talking online. I remember my best friend Trey was actually the one that turned me on to 2K in general. Um, I didn't play it on Dreamcast, but I played the very first version on the Xbox. And yeah, since then that's really all I've done. Obviously, I played NBA Jam and Live and some of the other stuff when I was much younger, but it's been 2K for pretty much the last 20 some odd years.
now, would you say that those early playing days were your peak in terms of personal video game playing performance, or do you think you've gotten much better since then?
I would say it was the peak just because I had time to play 20
Right.
hours a day, or whatever crazy hours I was putting in. Now, I mean, a lot of my job is very like on the road. A lot of people see like all the things I do to promote 2K, and then obviously working with our amazing development team is a very fun, back and forth as well. So I don't have the time that I had, and a lot of the younger guys have gotten very good at our game. I'm still really good at it, but like I don't get the time to grind to legend and do all these, put in all these crazy hours that a lot of our best players do. But I do think I could play in the 2K league. I do think I could do it. I really do.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the 2K League. So,
Yeah.
at what point, because I'm sure there was a turning point where you
Mhm.
wanted to make this happen, and
Mhm.
owners in the league were like, this is a really bad idea. This isn't a sport. This isn't what we're about. This isn't any of that.
It's even
And
competitive if you think about it.
right. And
Yeah.
then what was that turning point? Because there must have been one.
Yeah, well, it was a long road. I mean, like when I first started 2K, it was the only mode you could really play was quick game, right? Me, the Rockets, you, the Lakers, like that was how you played 5-on-5 God mode. In 2K10, we introduced career, and that was really the first time where we're like, hey, why wouldn't there be a place where you could play as yourself and represent something? I don't know if at that time we thought it'd be NBA teams like it is now with the NBA 2K, the NBA teams having an NBA 2K league teams corresponding. They get the same kind of treatment. They go through the same nutrition plan, same workout. It's crazy, like how much overlap there is between the NBA players and the NBA 2K league players. But I think that's when it really began, because then it became about yourself. But that was a long progression, and you look at visuals of 2K, but if you think about just the modes of 2K in just my career, not my career, the modes, my career meaning since I've been at 2K, it's been this like very long development, but with a long-term strategy of making the game about yourself and self-expression. Now we have the city, and you walk around, you wear clothes, skate to between parks, you represent an affiliation. There's a lot of like cool things, but that was a long-term vision. Scanning was another breakthrough, right? Like, so in 2K15, when we put scanning in the game, you got to look like yourself, which was huge. 2K14 was the first time we put a park in the game where you could meet people that you never met before. Crazy thing about the 2K League is that a lot of these guys that played together, at their houses for years, had never met, and then all of a sudden they're living together and playing on 2K League teams. It's a pretty extraordinary change, but the league is actually at the turning point, no pun intended. They're at the turn right now in season 4, which is just phenomenal. Where the league has been chugging and plugging for 4 years now, and it's really great to see.
It's so cool. I can't remember what season it was, but I was at a draft for the
Yeah,
2K League at Barclays Center.
yeah, that
And
was season 2, I believe. Yeah, I think that was season 2.
that was exciting.
Yeah,
There was some real energy, and that was super cool to see.
yeah, that was when our first female gamer ever was drafted. Was there, Chiquita. Yeah, but again, like you asked a good question, which is the vision towards building something as big as that really takes a lot of thought and development over years. Like, you don't get there overnight. It took a massive strategy by the great people that work at 2K, our great development team. thinking about how we were going to evolve and evolve and evolve to get to that final point. And I just think that, you know, that kind of thought process is really cool for a game that launches every single year.
Totally. Speaking of a game, you know, that launches every year, the covers having just been announced, I was curious, you know, sort of the process, because it's almost like being on the cover is an award, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's just
Yep.
a different kind of award. But for something like the MVP in the NBA, it's chosen between, you know, 100+ media members who each get votes, and then it's counted based on you rank people first, second, third place. How do the covers work in the 2K League? Is it a similar thing between
It's
gamers?
not
How
100
does that
people.
work?
I'll tell you that. It's not a lot of people. And that's honestly because I don't think a lot of people need to weigh in. I think in a lot of cases, the cover athlete is really obvious. But we usually, and I think this has been a pretty similar thing throughout, there's three commonalities between a cover athlete. Number one, they're probably more on the rise than they're on the decline. Like it's more about like somebody that's we're sort of saying is the next big guy. I mean, if you look at the last two cover athletes, Luka and Zion, you know, those are going to be the two guys in the league for the next 15 years, right? So I think that's a big one. Storytelling, you know, we build our concept first for what we want to do in the game and what we want to do in marketing. And then slot in a cover athlete that most emulates that. You know, this year is Anyone Anywhere. I think Luka really tells that story really well. You know, obviously with his background. And then finally, I think the third thing is like we want to see success, or we expect success from that player. And that's really borne out too. You know, like KG had never won a championship. The year we put him on the cover, he won a championship later that year. Kobe won a championship the year he was on the cover. Every single year, these guys win a championship within a 1 or 2 year period. So we sort of have a reverse curse. The only curse I'd say we have is it happens way too often, but maybe it's just the NBA. These players move around. So like, I mean, you remember the Kyrie thing? We had Kyrie on the cover at first as a Cavalier and then as a Celtic. You know, that was a very challenging summer. People don't understand, like there's a lot involved with a cover athlete moving teams, you know, or rebrand at stores, you know, all of this stuff that goes into that. It's a good thing in a way.
So what did you have to do that summer? Like what were when you
it was great. It was
what
nuts.
are the first actions?
I mean, it's like red alert because you have to change all of this creative and get everything updated. It's a tremendous amount of work. I mean, think about how many copies are sent or distributed globally. That trade happened like 11 days before our game came out. So, you know, that was like, it was challenging. It was really fun. It was really fun, but there was already copies that were going to be out there of him in a Cavs uniform. The game isn't made overnight, right? Like it's printed well in advance, or not well in advance, but in advance, where, you know, a trade that happens within 2 weeks of the season start or of our game coming out, that's going to be challenging to deal with. But it's also fun. I mean, and we've also like speculated. I mean, you think about the LeBron cover a couple years later, he's not in a uniform, but like we weren't sure he was going to move, but we thought it was possible, and we were like, let's see if we can avoid what we had to deal with the Kyrie thing. But all of that is great conversation, great fodder for you know, the conversation around our game, because you think about how much player transaction affects our game in particular, and it's really, really neat because, you know, you get to play those trades out. You saw LeBron a couple years ago when he did get moved to the Lakers. He's playing as himself on the Lakers with his teammates for the first time in the game, and not, you know, in practice.
It's true.
I think that's really interesting too.
Totally. I feel like there was a lot of team bonding going on there. And
yeah, for sure.
Maybe
those guys have played in the city. I mean, I'll tell you what, I think Kyrie and KD knowing those guys, if you actually do your investigation, I don't know what year it was, but me and those two played a city game. And if you listen to their dialogue, you're like, these guys are definitely going to be teammates really soon. I mean, and that's how these relationships with a lot of these players are made, just like they're made off the court between our 2K League players, our great community, like they make friendships. So do the NBA players playing 2K. And it's funny, we may have created some teams over the years in that regard.
Speaking of NBA players playing 2K,
Mhm.
do you have a mental top list of the guys? I know Kevin takes his 2K game very seriously,
does.
but are there, if there was a real tournament for a lot of money between NBA guys, who are you putting your money on?
Well, obviously we had the ESPN Players Tournament last year, and that was funny that year. Who did I say was going to win it? I said it was going to be either Trae Young or KD, and KD lost in his first game, so that was rough. I think Trae Young lost his second game. The person that won was Devin Booker. Now, look, Devin is a great video game guy, and he beat his teammate DeAndre Ayton, who I know plays a lot. I just think that there's guys that we don't even know are really amazing 2K players. I always anointed Paul George as my number one 2K player. And then I was at this, him and I did a court opening in Palmdale for 2K Foundations, our court refurbishment program, which is so awesome. But we did a court opening in his hometown of Palmdale, and he had like a side celebrity athlete tournament. And in the finals, it was him and Patrick Beverly. I'm like, oh my God, PG's gonna just wash him. And Pat won. And I'm like, I had no idea Pat Bev was this good at the game. So like, I would like to say it's, PG, Kevin, Cat's really good. There's a bunch of guys, but I don't know. One day I hope we actually get to do a tournament on the mass scale. I thought the ESPN Players Tournament was a great nod towards that.
Totally.
But there's just so many ways to play our game. So I'd love to see like how that looks in Pro-Am or career. I just think competitive gaming for 2K, leveraging the NBA players, there's still a lot to do there because I want to find out who is the best. I really don't know.
Totally. One thing that I'm curious if you put any thought towards this. I'm sure you have, but adding lots of celebrities just into the game, into like celebrity games. So on like that quick play type mode,
Yeah.
you can have some of these celebrity games with random people. Where is that something you've thought about?
We had it for NBA 2K13. We've seen that celebs want to play as themselves in career. So like we've scanned some celebs, and you'll see them in the city all the time playing as themselves with like professionally scanned heads and logos that verify them. I think that's really cool because a lot of people, our consumer, can actually like hang out with Quavo while he's playing, and not just one consumer, like hundreds of people that are in the city, right?
Right.
That would be hard in real life. So it's cool that it can happen in our game, and it happens a lot. So I think that currently is the best opportunity. We'll have to see, where this goes in the future.
Totally.
Maybe we'll bring a celebrity team back at some point. I don't know. There's always an appetite for that, but right now, we have to think about our most played mode and where our consumer can most have the opportunity to play against Quavo or guys like him, and that's in the city right now.
Makes sense. What has the shift been like from people, back a few years back, everybody bought their copies of 2K physically.
Mhm.
And now I'm curious how many people are buying it digitally now, and how does that, sort of to the point of what we were talking about earlier and the covers and printing, how does that sort of give you more leeway to do more fun things when so many
That's a great question.
are downloading it?
It definitely has created more leeway to do things like that. A couple years ago, we did this special edition with Travis Scott that was released at ComplexCon that was super coveted. The physical to digital thing is obviously interesting. It's across not just our industry, every industry, right? As the world moves more digital, the pandemic probably accelerated that a little bit even. But I think that there's a world for both. Like, look, there's a lot of people, and you see it in the trading card world and other things, the shoe world, which I'm very involved in. You know, having a physical good and having that collector's kind of stamp to it is still really important. But any way you can play our game, we're gonna allow that. We're gonna you know, we're gonna follow the market, or we're gonna lead the market really, but we're gonna put it out there both digitally and physically. There's some people that just want the box, and I'm one of those people too. So I think I'll always try to buy my games physically just because I want the box and, you know, that kind of work.
That makes sense. It's great to hear that you're a collector as well. What are you're mostly into? What type of sneakers, or are you also?
I used to have 600 pairs of shoes. I actually offloaded 300 of them because of I work with Make-A-Wish, and there was an opportunity to like give back. So like 300 of my shoes went to funding some wishes for Make-A-Wish. I probably still need to like cut down more, but I'm in the middle of a renovation, so like my shoes are all over the place. But there's some shoes that I really like, and I've been a sneakerhead for years, so it's cool to have a pretty aspirational collection. I feel like I could go head to head with a lot of people, but it's just something I think about all the time. And then I used to be a big trading card collector when I was a kid, and when I went to college, my mom threw away
No.
my cards. I had like 50,000 cards, and I'm sure I know there was a few Michael Jordan rookies in there. I bet you that collection was a couple $1,000,000. So I'm still salty about that, but I've gotten a little bit back into it recently. There's, you know, it's a really cool kind of business, but yeah, you know, those are probably the things I collect the most.
Do you have a
outside of video game cases?
Do you have a holy grail sneaker?
I got some really interesting stuff. I have a lot of one-on-ones. I have things that celebrities or NBA players have given me. Trying to think. There's some random. I'm sure there's some grails that are worth a lot of money that are just tucked away that I've even kind of forgotten about. I need like a refrigerated sneaker closet. That's what I've decided.
Like a wine cellar, but for your sneakers?
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
That would be pretty cool. Like how cigars are kept in those.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a house renovation, and I don't even want to think about like things like adding anything like that. I've had about enough of that.
But you said you also collect video game cases. Do you go back beyond 2K, or does that start at 2K?
Most of my stuff is 2K, but I got like, I mean, I still have all my NES games, my N64. I still play a lot of N64 when, you know, we're doing social stuff. I know, and I've seen some of the prices on some of this stuff. I wish I hadn't unsealed a lot of this stuff. I think I had that Super Mario Bros.
The one that's, you know, like that 1.6 million.
Yeah, I think I had the Super Mario Bros. Thing. I've never looked. I probably should, but I still have all my old games.
I would definitely
crazy now how much some of those are worth.
Yeah, I mean, to the point though, the reason they're all worth so much in the video games because everybody opened them. Like, what crazy person?
Yeah, you wanted to play. Why were you like thinking about 40 years down the road where it'd be valuable?
Right. And then the other thing is, well, everybody's mom threw out all their stuff. So that's why, you know, but also in cards, it's all condition based.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of the benefit.
Yeah. How are you going to keep the cards for 40 years like really good unless you're, for some reason, Nostradamus thinking about that stuff? Yeah.
Right. And on top of that, you just get lucky that there are no floods, hurricanes, all that sort of natural stuff, right? Yeah. In a 40-year time span, which is,
yeah, most people move around. Most people like collect dust, you know, like over that time period. Yeah. I don't know how people keep that stuff pristine because God knows I can't.
But that sort of lends itself very well if, you know, you're somebody that doesn't do a good job, that like me, right, in the NFT and digital collectible space, which has now, you know, crossed all over 2K. Mm-hmm. Whereas everything you get is in mint condition. But the downside is that everybody's stuff is in mint condition because it's
Yeah.
digital. How much are you thinking about the NFT world in terms of its relationship or potential relationship with 2K?
I don't know if there's a potential relationship to 2K. I think as a business, it has some legs because people want to capture those moments, but I'm not as bullish as some of my contemporaries. Like I think it's cool. I think that the ones that may work will have some sort of like cool way of connecting to the physical version of that. Like I think of artwork and like storing that over years and like that might be cool. I don't know about like moments in time unless somehow we're policing the reposting of highlights and stuff like that. I don't see it, and I don't know if it has 2K relevance in terms of like gameplay or anything like that. We'll have to see. It's kind of new. I kind of keep my eye on it, but I'm just not as probably as bullish as others on it.
The one thing that I think is a lock for NFTs are its relationship with tickets.
Mhm.
So if, let's say, Travis Scott performs at Madison Square Garden and they sell the front row ticket for $1,000, yet that front row person resells it for 10,000, Travis makes nothing of that $9,000 difference. But if that ticket is an NFT, he can set a percentage that he then gets of every resale in perpetuity. So it gets sold 20 times, he gets percentages of that. So for the artist, attaching that to a digital collectible just to incentivize people to want to purchase it that way and pay the 10% if they resell it, I think that's like.
What do you think about the video game space? What is the video game like corollary to that? Because I don't know if there is one.
There isn't really. The only place that it could be were if there were like cards inside of the games, and then it's like, oh, this is also an NFT, and that's not like the primary value proposition, right? Like if it's like, oh, this is an NFT, you give us lots of money, and then you get this JPEG that you then have the right to resell. That's what it has been, but what it should be is this is also an NFT. Like you get maybe like an NFT of 2K when you buy this special version, but that's just a bonus. It's just added value, and it's just baked into the pricing model.
Fair enough. Yeah, we're gonna have to see where this market goes. I mean, it definitely was hot a few months ago. I just wonder, as people get back to the regular world, assuming that happens. The last week has been kind of murky, but assuming that happens, it'll be interesting to see things like collectibles maintaining their market value.
Totally. Like you said, though, it's all about the real world utility. So those are the ones that are gonna, continue to do well.
I think those will do well and continue to do well.
Everybody
that's why your concert idea is actually a good one, because it has some real world, substance.
Totally. And and at the end of the day, it's like people are only going to do it if it benefits all sides. I know a lot of athletes and athletes will complain to you, even though I'm sure you're not even the person who makes the ratings.
I'm a little busy.
Right. Because they're just, upset about their rating, even though it is correspondent to how they're playing. But I'm sure a lot of celebrities try to hit you up to get their, ratings for whatever mode of the game they're playing up. Is there a personal criteria? Will you give it to somebody because you like their music and not to somebody because you don't? Or how does that process in your head work?
We have a pretty sophisticated benchmarking. I mean, look, if I gave it to every would-be rapper, everybody in the game would be,
rapper,
or every would-be fashion designer, everybody in the world would be verified. Generally, like we verify for certain benchmarks, and you definitely know, like the whole part of literally was having this conversation earlier. For whatever reason, everybody on Twitter today is getting verified, and I'm like, is it really a verification anymore if you're if everybody's got it. So like for us, it's important to maintain that to the people that play our game a lot, put out constructive, content, are really excited to play it and do more with it and treat it as a facility. But then, like keep it special by maintaining certain benchmarks. That's all. You would know everybody that's verified.
That makes sense.
Like I'll tell you, like NFL players are verified in the game, but the second that you're not an NFL player before or after, you're not verified, right? You're a verified football player in our game. It's the same thing across all sports.
Got it. And then you would have to get re-verified if you're like somebody like Tom Brady.
Every year you have to re-verify. It's not a big deal. It allows us to kind of check in on the relationship, see how much they're playing, and putting out good content.
It's smart, and 2K has the benefit of it being a different game every year. So you sort of have to.
I mean, we have to, because like the career is totally different. It's not a iterative game. It's if you just look at the career mode alone in the last few years, it's totally different than what it used to be. Every year it's changed dramatically. Now we have a city. Last year we had a neighborhood. Before it was just parks, right? Like, so when the game changes as much, we need to re-verify, because you're verifying something new.
Right. Are there any celebrities or just people out there that you were surprised play 2K? Like, are there any like OG older celebrities or movie stars?
I got hit up by, and I was so kind of confused, was like, I'm followed by like Jennifer Love Hewitt and Melissa Joan Hart, and they don't follow anybody on Twitter. And I'm like, do their kids play? Like, and then like Macy Gray, like DM me recently and was like, hey, I play 2K. Can you verify my person? I'm like, really? I mean, you might. I'll go look up your gamer tag, see how much you play. But I don't know. It's amazing. What I will say is that 2K is created this culture of like inclusivity and community and culture that nothing really surprises me, just because like we really do build this game for anyone and anywhere, really. Like it is cool that way. So I guess nothing really surprises me. Anybody that plays 2K is cool in my book.
What would shock you if like a president reached out, or a leader of a nation was playing 2K in their free time?
Instead of leading the free country.
Yeah, pretty much.
That might scare me more than anything.
I feel like President Obama
I feel like Obama should definitely play our game.
He must have, or maybe he
I would love to find that out. If anybody can figure that out for me, that would be great.
That would be.
We'll do some fun content if anybody can find out if President Obama plays our game.
Imagine getting a DM, from President Obama. Hey,
out of this podcast, I'd be very excited.
Would you mind verifying my profile?
I feel like I can do that, Mr. President. I feel like I can do that.
Yes.
We'd have to come up with a new symbol, though. We have different logos based on what you do for a living. Like fashion designers have something, musicians have something, sports people have something, streamers have something. We'd have to like come up with some presidential seal. Maybe it's just the presidential seal. There we go.
That would be pretty baller.
Check.
Dang. Now just got to become president real quick to get the seal.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody wants a logo, that's the way to do it.
Right. Now, what are you most excited about now? You got 2K 22 coming up. You're out here still collecting in different niches. What excites you the most right now? That's the final question I got for you.
Look, I think that like a lot of people are like, oh, what do you do next year? You've put MJ on the cover before. You've created this amazing career experience. Like we've done so much in music and fashion and on the periphery of basketball. I really think, and it's because the brilliance of the NBA and the like intelligence of our development team, that we're really just scratching the surface. Like the sky's the limit on this franchise, just because there's so many ways that we can grow the lifestyle around basketball that will really resonate with a basketball fan. And yeah, so without giving too much away, like it's always amazing every year. Like if you had ever, our fan base is extremely passionate, and they're like, "Oh, you got to do this next. You got to do this next," and it's usually ideas from years before, and I'm always like, "How are you guys going to speculate on something you don't even know about yet?" You know what I mean? Like,
right.
meaning like we have proven in my 13 and a half years of 2K that we will come up with a feature that will come from nowhere. Like it will just be like, what, where did that, like, how did they think of that? And it's not a 1 day process, and it's not a 1 person process. There's a lot of the smartest people I've met in my life work at 2K, and the hardest working people in my life I've met at 2K. And those in combination, along with like opportunity, right? Like the way, even if you think about my career, right? Again, not the mode, meaning my life, right? A lot of the growth of social media, the growth of NBA, the growth of lifestyle around basketball, that all happened around the same time as when my profession was really building. So it was opportunity meeting a lot of hard work. It's the same with our game. We continue to grow in ways that are unpredictable, but also very relevant. The things that happened last year with BLM and our response to that, we always have a way to respond that's very 2K, very us, but very thoughtful as well. So I like I said, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think that there's so much more to do in the world of lifestyle, basketball, culture, shoes, fashion, music, that unlike a lot of other annualized games, other even annualized sports games, I feel like it would be much more challenging to work on those than ours in terms of opportunity. So I'm really excited for more opportunity, even though we've done things that are really impressive. We're just scratching the surface.
That's awesome. And I think too, is people care more and more about their digital presence and the way that people see them. 2K is just another avenue for that entire,
Well, no, not only that, dude, it's also an avenue for distribution of what you're passionate about.
Right.
Like we've developed people's music platform, right? Like people submit soundtracks. I was part of the panel last year with United Masters that picked 20 dynamic tracks to come onto our soundtrack. We worked with Steve Stout, we worked with Kevin Durant, we worked with a bunch of other people to build this thing. How cool is that? A video game to launch your actual music career. We've done the same with fashion. Like in the last couple of years, we've dropped all these fashion brands into the city, and people wear clothes digitally. You might have more clothes in the city than you have in the real world. And people are seeing it more in the game than they do in the real world. And I think that that's so cool, because we are setting up branding opportunities for all of these people, including NBA players, right? NBA players think about how they want to brand leveraging 2K. So it's all really exciting. I think as long we have really ambitious goals always to grow as a platform for the next. Totally. So as long as we continue to innovate and do that, which we will, because we have really smart people that work really hard, the sky's the limit.
And not even, getting into the whole streaming side of things. That's a whole nother
that's a whole nother thing.
Whole nother world.
Esports, all of that stuff is another extension. I'm just talking about the core of our product, which is a basketball video game we've done a lot, but we're just scratching the surface.
I can't wait, man. And the thing that I'm the most excited for too is, so the way that I look for sports cards and even watch YouTube now is in VR, in Oculus.
Yeah.
So I know it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, technology continues to expand. The improvement of the PS5 hardware over the PS4 hardware, for example, has been drastic, which has allowed us to, add things like the city and its huge magnitude, and then learn and iterate in future years. Technology is going to allow us to continue to meet with that innovation. Like I said, I keep banging the same word over and over again, but we're just scratching the surface because technology is going to continue to expand. Our arsenal of opportunities, whether that's technology, the game of basketball, the culture around basketball, all that stuff continues to develop, which will allow us to meet the challenge and continue to develop alongside that. And so that's why, in the millennial world that we live in, where people hop around job to job, I really get excited about going to work every day. Well, not going physically to work lately,
but mentally to work.
But going mentally to work every day, because of the every day is new and exciting and innovative, and that's what's great about this profession more than anything.
Well, I can't wait to see everything you guys continue to do. Thank you so much for doing this, and everybody get a NBA 2K22 when it drops. Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Peace. Thank you so much, man. That was awesome.